Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Found Family. I'm so excited. I have another special guest with me here today, Petia, and we are going to be talking about how to heal your wounded inner child. So Petia Kolibova is a women's transformation coach who helps women who have been pushed down and been playing it small due to toxic relationships or unhealed childhood trauma to create a life that is true to them and their soul purpose. Her mission is to help women who are on the path to healing from past wounds move through their limiting beliefs and internal blocks so they can finally do what they want to do, what feels good to them, serve other women in a powerful way online. Petia pairs feminine flow with strategic planning to give entrepreneurs immense clarity and exact steps to transform from side hustler to CEO. If she's not interviewing on her podcast, Unapologetically Abundant, working out, or reading, you will find her in nature, disconnecting from the world and connecting to herself. Oh, I felt that as I was reading it. How beautiful, Petia. Thank you so much and welcome.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You should record the intro for my podcast. I was like, that feels so good. How every person has a different energy and how it's not what we do, but how we really do it. And I'm like, this feels so good. Keep going.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. I'm so grateful. And I know we were chatting a little bit before we got the recording started about how incredibly empowering and important this topic is, talking about the wounded inner child. So I'm very excited for this and would love to start the soul chat today talking about your story, as it's very beautiful. And I'm wondering, did you experience an aha moment that helped you realize that your inner child was wounded and or traumatized?
That's such a beautiful question. And I don't feel that there was this aha moment, this light bulb moment that one thing would shift everything as far as my inner child. What I did notice though on my journey, that there was always the same, I always ended up with the same feeling, right? So wherever I've been, so I'm originally, as some people might be wondering, where is her accent from? So originally I was raised and born in Czech Republic. When I was 20, I moved to London. From London, I moved to Spain. I was there for 4 years.
Wow.
Now 11 years in the United States. And it might be like, oh, this is fun. She's traveling. No, this wasn't fun. I was running away. I was running away from myself. I was running away from my family, my relationships, because the way I was raised was, physically, mentally abused, which led me to be in the hatred relationship with myself, with my body, developing eating disorder for almost 18 years. When I was 18, I actually attempted of suicide, and all these things because I was really hurt inside, and I was trying to bring it on the outside. Even as a teenager, I was cutting my hands. I still have scars because I felt so much pain inside of me that I didn't know how to express it. And the worst feeling is when people look at you and on the outside your life looks good. Oh, you're young, good, you're pretty, oh, you're in good relationship. I'm happily divorced now, but I used to be married to a narcissist, and all these things. When I say that I was always ending up in the same feelings, no matter where I lived, whether it was London, whether it was Spain, whether it was United States, whatever job I would hate, I would end up feeling unloved, unworthy, and I was really feeling empty inside. And so it wasn't up until the big aha moment in my life. It didn't yet have to do with childhood traumas, but it started to plant the seeds. When I was so desperate, I was around 27, 28, and I was getting into that point, is this it? This I'm supposed to live until the rest of my days? I don't want this. And I was getting back into these dark moments of depression and not really coping a healthy way. That was the moment that I started to search online, and that was almost a decade ago. And it wasn't as easy as it's now. The podcast, the Instagram, the influencers, right now, you get a challenge, you will get hundred thousands of people speaking about the challenge, like, hey, you're really not alone, right? So it feels better. But a decade ago, that was when everything starting. So I was looking at YouTube and Uncle Google for all the questions, like how to not be depressed, how to feel happy, how to stop with eating disorder, and all these things. And luckily I found Louise Hay. She was the one who truly saved my life, because I was on my knees and crying, and I was so exhausted mentally and physically. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why I always, up until this moment, end up on my knees and feeling empty and alone? So that was the moment that I realized that something has to change. And I started to brainwash myself. Instead of letting this inner critic telling me, who do you think you are? You're stupid, you're silly, you're fat, all these things. I started to brainwash myself with Louise Hay, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza. All of these people were giving me hope. And that's when I started the journey and looking back. Because I don't know about you, Lizzie, but looking back can be sometimes painful. And we are like, no, 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 I'm past that. I'm good. No, thank you. Right?
Yeah.
This doesn't feel good. Let's just put it here under the carpet. When I don't see it, it cannot see me. Unfortunately, it doesn't work this way anymore.
Yeah.
Right? But that's when I started to realize that the common denominator in all of these, it's me. And it wasn't me, the 30-year-old, because when people look at me like, oh, she has all her stuff together, I didn't. But on the outside, it looked like. I realized that this goes way back, because I started to investigate my life, the situations, the people. Why do I end up like this, even when I'm in different places and different faces? And it was this hurt little girl inside. It wasn't the 30-year-old who, like seemed like she has it all. It was the little girl who was feeling unsafe, who was feeling unprotected, who was feeling unlovable and unworthy. That little girl decided when she was 7 years old that she's unworthy. She has to always people please, so she deserves her place under the sun, right? And it really took me a decade of doing the inner work, working with mentors, working with coaches, to learn to reparent myself.
Wow.
And
Yes.
I know it's a long-winded answer.
And I love every second of it. I am sitting here and my body is having a reaction because of how many similarities and how much, like, everything that you're saying is like resonating with me on such a personal level, because, having had, what's incredible about social media, as you're saying, something that we have available to us now, which I know we were talking a little bit about before we started the recording. It's like when we're going through these things, it's confusing, it's scary, it's uncertain. And we feel oftentimes like, wow, what I'm going through, no one else must either be going through it too, or they must not know how I'm feeling, because I'm feeling so hurt and I'm feeling so sad and I'm feeling so alone. And then when you realize, like, wow, there are so many others who have shared experiences, even if it's not the exact same blueprint of the story, the feelings that we have gained or learned from those experiences are shared. And it feels so comforting to know, like, wow, you see me, you hear me, you get me. And that's like, what Found Family is all about, is like, you get me. Like, the fact that, you're, and first of all, thank you for sharing your beautiful heart with us. I mean, how wonderful. Like, I honor your vulnerability, and you have, again, like this beautiful glow and energy. And it's just so incredible to see this overcoming story, which is the other layer of Found Family, is this ability to overcome once we look inward. And I totally hear what you're saying, that it's so much easier to say, well, if I brush it under the rug, it's not there. Even if I see the mountain, I don't see what's actually under the rug. I'm looking at the rug. So, like, it's not there. And I grew up in a very conservative religious household where we were not confronting things head on. We would push them under the side and push them under the rug, and it would just compound. And that is a very toxic cycle, because I was taught to suppress. So I could not, agree with you more about the way in which you shared your story about like what happens sort of behind the scenes. I know my kitty, for those of you watching on YouTube, my cat makes appearances. And the two things that like resonated with me a lot as well is the fact that you said that the mentors that you were connecting with, even if it wasn't face to face, like through books and through, different platforms, it gave you hope. And I think that that is such a beautiful thing that I want to sort of back pocket and bring up later. But that sense of hope is something that can be that beacon of light, that as we're going through these really dark times and like turbulent times is when you feel that sense of hope. For me, I mean, I totally agree. Louise Hay was definitely like an anchor for me. Dr. Brene Brown was in a similar way, that person that like literally saved me from myself. I've talked about this on Found Family as well before, that in a similar way, about 5 years ago, I was in the darkest, deepest depression of my life. I was like around 24, 25 at the time. And, had suicidal thoughts. And I was in just a very deep, dark space. And it was through Dr. Brene Brown's book about like the gifts of imperfection. As a fellow people pleaser and having had that kind of like, well, you need to be this perfect person for this person and this person, it all stemmed back to one specific person for me. And it was very much, like not getting to really heal that inner child that was like, I just need you to make me feel the safety and the love that I didn't feel when I was growing up. So again, like just so beautiful. And thank you for sharing. And I hear what you're saying too, that it's not always like a specific aha moment, but like little ones along the way. So I think that's a really important thing to really, emphasize to our listeners, is that it doesn't always have to be like a specific moment. Sometimes it can be, and that's wonderful. But if it doesn't happen for you specifically, don't feel like there's something wrong with you, or don't feel like you have to wait for the perfect moment, because it can be your body's way of sort of having an accumulated little mini aha moments. So just wanted to kind of share and highlight that. And I think a great transition then is to talk more about this inner child healing. So how can you share with our audience what is inner child healing?
Such a beautiful question. What is childhood, like childhood trauma healing or wound healing? Because sometimes we say to ourselves like, oh, my childhood was good, it wasn't that bad, right? So there's nothing to heal. But even if you didn't have a traumas like being abused or being beaten up or growing up on the streets, right? Like there are different phases. But if in the childhood, when you were growing up, if there were moments when you're feeling unsafe, unheard, unseen, you created stories that are still coming and living here with you. So I think that very important thing, it's like, this happened a couple of years ago. We were hosting retreat in Bali, and one of our participants, when I was introducing childhood healing, she said, well, my childhood wasn't like that bad. Like, yeah, my parents got divorced, but like there was no trauma. I'm like, okay, that's okay. It doesn't have to be like a mountains that we have to like, like overcome. But tell me a little bit more about how you felt when you were growing up. What was your relationship, and what stories have you created about your childhood? Because I can promise you that the way your parents see that, it's different than when you see that. So she was sharing with me, and she realized as she was sharing, and we did, hypnosis and meditation there too, she realized that she felt abandoned by her father because he didn't put her asleep when she was a little girl, and then he got remarried. So she felt that there was never this like bond like created deeply with her, and she felt that there's something wrong with her, because if her father would love her, he wouldn't get remarried. If she would be enough, he wouldn't be searching for a different family. So we got that and we were able to heal it because I invited her to a different perspective and I invited her to reparent herself. So we did a meditation, visual meditation, when the father were putting her in the bed and he was telling her the things that she needed to hear, because your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between memory, or when you create something like a visualization, when it's emotionally charged, your subconscious mind cannot distinguish. So we were able to do that, and thankfully that we did that, because she went to visit her family in Europe, where she's originally from. She lives in the United States now. She was able to go visit them. Her dad got really sick and he passed away just a few months later.
Oh,
It
wow.
was unexpected, but also thankfully she was able to heal that, because she did change her relationship with him. The way
Wow.
she saw him, the way she behaved with him. So it doesn't have to be huge traumas. Like, for example, me, I was physically and mentally abused and was called names that you would never call your worst enemy, let alone, like 5, 7, 10-year old. So for me, it was different, but I also have clients who were sexually abused as little babies. I'm like little girls, like something I can never comprehend. So there are different things that we get to be healing. Yet it all comes back to, did I feel loved? Did I feel heard? Was I able to express myself?
Mm.
How did I view the world? Like, you get to ask yourself these reflective questions, and maybe the answer doesn't come right away, but you're planting the seeds. You're planting the seeds for your little child to be seen and heard. And listen, maybe your parents love you so much and you had an amazing childhood, yet they were working a lot and you were not able to play with them as you wanted. It doesn't make them bad parents, right?
Mhm.
But it makes you miss on something that you wish that existed back then.
Yes.
It's your time to step in and reparent yourself and give yourself the things, because if you don't do that, and this is coming into the place of like realizing, if you don't give yourself what you needed as a little child, you will be compensating it now as an adult. You will feel unworthy and unlovable, right? And it will reflect in your relationships, in your job, in your pay, in your relationship with your body, right? Or you will be attracting the same things into your life. Up
Mhm.
until recently, like now I'm engaged, I'm getting married this June. I'm so in love with
Yay.
my fiance. But up until I met him, I was in toxic relationships
Mhm.
because I was recreating that relationship with my father, because I was not able back then to go back and heal it. I tried to heal it like as adult and go and see him, and he would like refuse and all these things. So I wasn't able to do it physically to go and see him, but I was able to heal it, forgive him, forgive myself,
Mhm.
forgive myself. That's a huge one.
That is a huge one.
Because very often when I'm talking about forgiveness, people are like, yeah, I can, like this person. I'm like, where on your list are you?
Oh, that's great. Yes.
It's so
Yeah.
easy to point out, but the three fingers are pointing back at you. Because for me, it was very easy to forgive my stepfather, because I'm like, he was immature. He was a young parent. He adopted me. Like my mom, she already like married him when I was 5 years old. He didn't know what he's doing. He comes from abusive family. So it's not like I will forget what he have done, but I can understand.
Mhm.
But I was struggling with forgiving myself the things that I did as a child to call the attention, the shame and guilt that I created when I like hurt animals, or when I was doing things that are like inappropriate age, right? All these things, because I was so craving love.
Mhm. Wow. I have goosebumps, Pythia, because literally, again, so much of your story is resonating with me and is like just very, very similar with my story. And with me, it was always my mom. So it's interesting that in some form it can be a parent, it can be another family member, it could be a friend. Like there's so many different versions of where that can come from. But a follow-up question that I was going to ask are there signs that our inner child is wounded and or traumatized? And a lot of what you shared by bringing up some of the questions that we can ask ourselves, like even if we weren't in a position where there was physical abuse, or as you said, like living on the streets, things like that, emotional abuse is still abuse. And if we, either energetically picked up or interpreted something that we were not getting the emotional fulfillment, especially from that one parent that we desperately craved it from and didn't receive, that is still traumatizing and is still something, as you said, that we then seek in others and seek, through life. And again, it wasn't until 26, 27, like around the same age that you shared, that I started to really not only realize that conceptually, but to internalize it. And there is so much truth. And that's where, again, this reparenting, which is such a beautiful word, the fact that we can empower ourselves to reparent ourselves and to be that person, to be that voice, to be that, whatever it is, insert here for ourselves that we didn't receive. And it sounds like, again, some of the signs is like, are there certain patterns of behavior? Are there certain patterns of decision making that we are seemingly going into, whether it's the same type of toxic relationship, or we're seeking for love and fulfillment from, money or from material things? Like there usually can be a more obvious or more apparent kind of sign, if you will, that can help us to be more like mindfully aware. And then, as you said, it's like the more challenging next step that a lot of people sometimes can be afraid to go into is like the self-work, and I've said this on Unfound Family before, that it's like self-work is hard work, but it's worth the work. And that is really, the mantra that I had to keep reminding to myself was, okay, if I keep spinning my wheels, so to speak, and looking for things externally, I'm not going to feel the true unconditional fulfillment. It's band-aids, temporary fixes, but what am I really seeking for? And it was a loving, healthy relationship with self. So I totally hear that. Curious to hear if you wanted anything to add to that, or if that was sort of, because I was piggybacking on what you were sharing too.
Yeah, no. And I absolutely love that. And one thing that I would love to just add to how beautifully like wrapped it up was really ask yourself, like, how am I feeling with my life? If nothing ever changes, am I okay with that? Right? Because very often when I ask my clients, they're not okay. And listen, your life doesn't have to be bad and terrible. But very often we have this feeling inside, like, I know there is more, and I know I'm not living it. Where in your life are you stopping yourself? Where in your life you're not fully expressed, and why? And go back. Go
Right.
back and really ask yourself, when did this started? When did I stop trusting myself? When did I stop having fun and playfulness, right? Because listen, maybe there is someone who is listening right now and they're like, well, I'm feeling really fulfilled. I'm happy and I'm joyful and I have a playful time and I do enjoy who I am being and I love evolving, but I feel good. Great. That's amazing. I'm happy for you. Very often, and I was one of those people, we are looking for the answers, like, oh, podcast and book and, all these speakers. And it did saved my life, literally, that there was hope and there was this knowingness that there can be more in life, right? So really check in with yourself. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you have fun in your life? Because your life can be okay, but are you being playful? Are you laughing every day, right? We
Yes.
can go through many challenging times. Like, for example, right now, my grandma is in a hospital and she's my best friend. She's my baby girl. I love her to life. And while I was in Europe taking care of her, she had a stroke. And it was unexpected. It was challenging. She had another one last week. So these are the days that are heavy for me, yet I make sure that I bring this little girl out, because if I will sit here and cry and sit in my corner, who am I helping? Would she want me to be like this? Am I really bringing in the playfulness? You get to have that. You get to have that space and the creativity. And that's how you, when there is no creativity, when there is no playfulness and fun and joy, that's when you know that there is a little bit missing from your inner child, right? Because right now I do work with my inner child, and when people start with these questions, like doing this reflecting questions, the next step, what they can do, what I do with my clients, is find an older picture of you when you were like 3, 5, 7 years old, and print it out, ask your parents, print it out, put it in the mirror. And because sometimes it's like people are like, oh, this is weird, like, what do you mean inner child, what do you mean talking to the inner child? Like, some people, they have a resistance, and I get that. Listen, I was super skeptical about it too. But when you start doing the inner work, you start feeling differently. You start attracting different people and opportunities. So you don't have to understand everything, but it works, right? It's like, listen, I don't understand electricity and gravity. I know it is, but like, you cannot sit me down with a piece of paper and explain it to someone. I don't know, right? But it still works. The inner work works. The energy works. So I would really invite you to find some older picture of you when you were a little child, put it on the mirror, and when you're passing, just look at this child. Just start connecting. Because like having conversation with your inner child or like healing it can be like still very out there, because up until this moment you never done any work around it. You heard about it, but you never actually sat down and do something about it. So just to start and introducing it, start creating this connection, start looking at the picture, and you will start feeling differently. You will like maybe smile, maybe like, hey, what would you like to do today? And you just start in your head. It's okay. But you will start feeling the energy shifting, because this little girl or boy will start to feel seen. And like when you start paying attention to the kids, like when you go to the airport or you go to the store and you like, there's a child and this child like spots you and it starts looking at you, and you like smile and they start to like being shy, but they're like looking at you, right? And it's like there is this connection, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Right? So start there. You don't have to go deep. You don't have to like start healing. Start noticing, start being aware, start inviting, start, paying attention. That's the most beautiful thing you can really do. And then intuitively, you will know what to do. This little child will guide you. There will be steps, but don't let yourself overwhelm like, oh, what should I do? Like, right? And then you do nothing. Start with awareness. Start with the picture.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Because that helped answer the next question that was going to be, what are the ways that we can begin healing our inner child? And you said that so beautifully. And again, like the flow in which you started talking about it was just such a beautiful transition. And it's just, I actually have not done what you just suggested. And I was visualizing what you were saying as you were saying it, as though I had a picture and there was one specific one that came to mind, and it made me like very emotional, like even just now sitting here thinking about that photo, because it's you, but yet there is a little bit of like separation to be able to look at that child as a child with compassion and be able to say, like, if I saw you today, and say, like, this is getting me emotional too. It's like, if I saw you today, just like to go give you a hug, and just knowing that you can do that to your own self. And it's just like, what a beautiful gift that we can give to ourselves in that way through this visualization. And to have the picture, like we have photos of ourselves as adults. I mean, we're the selfie culture. Like we have too many photos of us, and it's understandable because of where we stand with everything. But to think that having that picture could be that visual representation that just further emphasizes or helps to support you with your healing, it gives even more of that visual. And I celebrate everything that you just said, because I'm like, now I want to go get an actual picture. If it's not the exact one, because maybe my parents have it, I'm like, how can I go get a photo, print it out, and do that? Because I mean, what a beautiful, and it's almost like, and I mean this in the best way, it's like, it's a very simple first step, and that's something that I love as well, is that it doesn't, healing and growth, I think, for those that are either newer on their growth and journey, or don't know where to start, you kind of look at people who feel like, oh, as we said at the beginning, right? Like this person has their stuff together. They look so successful. They look so happy. Like how long did it even take them to get to where they are? Like I won't ever be able to get that far, or maybe it's not possible for me. And again, I totally get that. So for anyone who's listening, who is feeling that right now, or who has thought that before, you're not alone. And we see you and we hear you and we are here for you. And it can be as simple of a step as printing a photo and doing what you said. So I thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fascinating. And it's funny because I was just sharing this with my fiance yesterday. I used to be a super hard worker. I would have like 4 side hustles and working really hard, coming from this wounded, like energy that I have to be proving myself and validating myself and working really hard so people can see me. And I got to the point that I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't want to be doing this. This doesn't feel right. So I shifted everything like 3 years ago. Now I work only like 2-3 days a week, the most. I work only with women I truly love. And I was able to build a 6-figure online coaching business in 9 months because
Wow.
I was able to heal. And what I really love is doing things easily and
Mhm.
simply. We overthink, we overanalyze, we think it has to be hard, we think it has to be difficult. Does it really? Or do we just want it to be hard so we can prove ourselves that we are deserving?
Oh, mic drop. Yes,
Right?
yes.
It doesn't have to be hard. Why?
Mm.
And I'm working right now. I have 3 mentors because I truly, truly believe. Listen, for me, it took me a decade, right? It doesn't have to take you. Women who work with me, it takes them weeks or months to really shift their life because I walk that path. I
Mm.
have the tools. I invested in my coaches and mentors. Right now, I'm also working with mentor for human design, which is just like, it's like a personality test, but it's more of like astrology and like all these beautiful things. And one day when I had my session, I was sharing with her, I'm like, I think I might be lazy because I'm working like 3 days and I do have my 5-figure month. And I'm like, how can I work even less? And it's not because I don't love what I do, but I so love my spaciousness and
Mm.
being with my love and being with my family. And we're planning kids next year, So I'm like,
Oh,
I want a more spaciousness, right? Is it because I'm lazy? And she was like, no, based on your design and who are you being, you came here to really help people find their purpose and show them the easy way. So I'm like,
wow.
awesome. So I'm not lazy,
Oh,
right? I
yeah.
came here to find the easy way and then teach it.
Wow.
How beautiful.
That's so
How
beautiful. I got
beautiful. So
goosebumps again. Oh my gosh. Yes, I love it. That is gorgeous. And again, that's further, clarifying like just the how it becomes so effortless that, even just before we talked about your human design and how you are on this mission to help simplify things so that people can fast track the healing and the growth and the journey that you've gone through. Look at how, even before mentioning that, it was so like authentic and beautiful and just like flowed from you because you are living by your design. You are living your authentic self. And that is another like beautiful thing that comes from the self work. So I think that, in the same way that there's all those commercials, right, about like medications and whatever, and they're like, oh, these are the side effects, and it's like side effects of self-growth and self-worth is like love, peace, connection with yourself, and inner flow, right? It's like
and prosperity.
yes.
That's the one thing that I
Oh, it's
really
so
learned on
beautiful.
my journey is that when you become unapologetically yourself, true
Mm-hmm.
to who you really are, the abundance comes. It's not from a hard work, it's from being yourself,
Yes.
embodying who you really are, because then people are magnetized to you
Mm-hmm.
and be around you, your people. You don't have to validate, you don't have to prove, you get to take an inspired action. I will never tell people to sit on their booty and everything will come to them. You will get bored anyway, right? But the thing is that when you truly embrace who you really are, when you step into this healing journey,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to have an ebbs and flow, everything in lives have, but it's going to be less drastic and it's going to be faster and you will be more in your flow. And it's so rewarding. It's so
It is.
rewarding.
It is. The word that just keeps like coming to mind is like authentic. It's just living your authentic self, and it becomes more natural and more free flowing once you do the self work. And it's, it really does feel different, seeing and remembering. Because I was actually just having a conversation, like another fellow soul chat with a friend of mine from college who I haven't spoken to in quite some time. And there was a lot of these kinds of, deep soul chat topics that I love getting into that we connected on. And it's a moment of reminder of like, look at how far we've come. Look at the incredible, ways in which we are now able to live our life, and to know that this path, was, something that we've gone through, that now we can sort of be the Louise Hayes and pass the torch, and then others can continue to do that. And it just continues to spread this beautiful, good energy and good vibes. And it just makes my heart sing. I mean, all of this just makes my heart sing. It's so beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love it. And you see, like it can feel daunting and challenging, but also enlightening and freeing
Yes,
and liberating.
freeing.
And yes,
That's
giving
the word.
yourself the things that you wish that you have had. Like, give
Mhm.
yourself this now, and everything in your life will change, because your energy will shift. The people you're attracting will shift, and you will create a life that it's really true to you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Thank you for sharing. Truly, again, such a treat. And as we're coming to the end, I would love to be able to ask you where our found family can find you, and where we can all just love and support on you. I know that we mentioned that you have your podcast, so to everyone who's listening, as always, all of Petia's information is going to be in the description of the podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube right now, it's in the description. But Petia, would love to hear also from you what other social platforms we can find you and support you.
That's such a beautiful question. I am all over Instagram. That's my jam. I just
Okay.
love it. I love being there. It's just my name, Petia Kolibova. And then I have also free Facebook group, Unapologetically Abundant Woman, where I created a beautiful safe space. It's a community where I train, where I bring teachers and trainers to support you in living the life of abundance and being unapologetically you. So those are my two favorite places to hang out.
Amazing. Wonderful. Well, Found Fam, we definitely want to encourage you to go and check Petia's information out. And again, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful heart and energy and soul with us. This has been so beautiful. And I'm so excited for everyone who's listening to begin the reparenting work, and to, really use this as a way for this divine intervention from the universe for me to go print out that photo too. So we're all on this journey together. I mean, that again just further shows that we really truly are all in this together.
Yes, we are. And thank you so much for having me and the beautiful work you're
Absolutely.
doing.
Oh, thank you so much.